I've played lots of horror games, and usually what happens is the more you play them, the more you build up your tolerance to them, to the point that you become so jaded you just don't even enjoy playing them anymore.
What are you doing in my home?
I've also played some alternate reality games, or ARGs. And if you ask me how to explain what one is, there's usually two ways. I either go into a long dialogue about how it's a game within a game that employs transmedia storytelling, whatever that means, to deliver a story that may or may not be influenced by the player's ideas or actions. And then, when people inevitably fall asleep at my explanation, I just wake them up by saying, Petscop was also an ARG. I bet that worked, didn't it? Pathetic. The thing is with Petscop though, as amazing as it is, it's an ARG that you watch, slowly peeling back the layers with each episode. But recently I found an ARG that isn't watchable, but playable, and it's one of the best I've ever experienced. And it's called myhouse.wad.
Oh man, not my house!
Also, I do want to say, I know Powerpack has done a great deep dive into this game. That's the second time he's beat me to a topic now. But to anyone that's already seen that video, which I assume to be pretty much all of you, don't worry, because there's a lot more to uncover about this game. It all started on September the 2nd of last year when a user called Veg posted on the Doom World forums, the oldest fan website dedicated to Doom games. Veg made a post explaining how he hadn't logged onto the Doom forums for well over a decade, but came back to mention how a longtime friend of his had died. Checking his post history, he was at least honest about the first part. The last post Veg ever made was on the 29th of October, 2006.
Today I made a post on Doom World showing off my friend's map. There's more to do on the map, but hopefully this is the encouragement I need to finish the map and push it out for release. I thought it would be a simple project, but the more I learn about the new UDMF features, the more things I've been adding to make it more interesting. I wanted the project to maintain the original aesthetic my friend was working on, but I'm trying to find the fine line between the original vanilla map and the cleaned up release that feels a little less 90s.
Veg goes on to explain while going through some of the maps that they made as kids on Doom, stored on a 3.5 floppy disk, which really shows how far back this story goes. On it, he found all the maps to be really subpar and nothing really of note until he stumbled on a map called My House, made in 1999. Veg said that in his friend's honor, he would clean up the map for release to the public. They didn't post about this map again until February 25th of this year, saying how for the past couple of months he's been staying up far later than anyone should, and when he does sleep, it's restless and unfulfilling. And how it all started around the time he tried to finish a tribute map to someone he lost in his life. Quick side note, I know half of you watching this video are probably enthralled and seeing where the story goes, and then the other half are probably rolling their eyes going, oh look guys, it's Ben drowned. It's Sonic EXE. I bet the floppy disk is haunted. Oh my god, look, it's floating on its own. It's so haunted, you guys. I bet this is full of jump scares, or I bet it has no jump scares until the very end, like those slow burn A24 films. Or maybe it's all in their head.
Mr. Anderson.
Run, Neo, run.
Now, I'm happy to say that none of this is true. The scariest part of this WOD is when you've been playing it for 10 minutes and there's a script to play a Discord notification sound. Anyway, bit over. Can we get back to the spooky music and the filters now? Yep, cheers. A month after Veg's last post on the 3rd of March, he finally uploaded myhouse.wad for the public, giving a bit more context as to how he found the floppy disk, saying he visited his hometown for his friend's funeral, and he connected with his parents who shared some old belongings, including the floppy disks with the Doom maps on them. He also goes on to say his deceased friend's name was Thomas. At the bottom, he posts a link saying, "Miss you, Tom." The link taking you to what I assume is a picture of Tom and Veg. Clicking on the link to download the file takes you onto a Google Drive. Here you can find some more screenshots of the house map. Nothing looks out of the ordinary, except when you click onto another screenshots folder, it shows all the same images, but now there's a new 7th image, showing a bathroom covered in blood. with a BFG 9000 in the corner of the room. The gun, that's basically the closest thing you'll ever experience to being a CSGO spin butter. There's also a Google Doc called Journal. It looks like Veg has been documenting everything since Tom passed away, starting on August 4th, 2022, to the news that his friend had died. Feeling great loss, he hoped that documenting his feelings will help him process his emotions and come to terms with what's happened.
Today I woke up to the news that an old childhood friend of mine had suddenly passed away. Can't believe it. We were so close when we were younger, and I feel like a part of my life is now missing. I feel so helpless. Like I can't do anything to bring him back. I feel so sad, and it feels like my heart is heavy. I can't help but think about all the fun times we had together growing up. All of our adventures, our secrets, and even our arguments. I miss him so much, and I can't believe he's gone. I'm struggling to cope with this news, and it's hard to stay focused on anything else. I hope that writing in this journal will help me process my emotions and come to terms with what has happened. I know that my friend would want me to remember the good times and continue to live life to the fullest.
Booting up my house, this game looks old. That's because it's running on Doom 2, not Doom Eternal, which came out in 2020, Doom 2, that came out in 1994. This sounds like a major drawback. Surely there's some huge limitations running on a game that's older than most people watching this video, but the map uses some really clever tricks to keep you on your toes. Now, you need GZ Doom to run this map, the same source port that was used for Total Chaos, a video I covered last year. Although putting the two together, they look nothing alike. Total Chaos played like a survival horror with limited resources, crafting, weapon degradation.
That is bait. That's bait.
But my house has none of that. It plays much more like a traditional Doom map, with you already beginning with a loaded pistol like you would in any official Doom map. And the enemies here are the same as in the base game. It really does just look like a fan map of someone's house. Veg even mentioned in his final post that making maps of your own house was all the rage back in the day of the year 2000s. Looking around the exterior of the house, there's really nothing out of the ordinary. It's a two-story house with a medium-sized garden. The only thing that stuck out to me was this metal podium outside with no grass growing around it. Another journal entry explains some reasoning behind the map coming into existence.
I attended the funeral of my childhood friend, and I was overwhelmed with grief. As I looked around at everyone else in the room, I could feel the sadness in the air. The service was beautiful, and the pastor said some kind words about my friend that made me feel better. After the service, I went back to my friend's parents' house and spent some time with them. I was reminded of all the fun times we had together growing up. I never imagined that I would be saying goodbye to my friend so soon. As I sat with my friend's parents, we reminisced about all the memories we shared. At the end of the visit, his parents gave me some old personal items that belonged to my friend. I was surprised to find a stack of old discs containing some Doom file backups. When I get home, I'll go through some of his old artwork and see what I can recover from the discs.
Veg and his childhood friend seem to both be avid Doom map makers in high school. If anything, it reminds me of the hours I'd spend in Halo 3 making my own levels on Forge, placing barriers for zombie chases, putting up prison bars for jail RP. Obviously, placing objects and coding entire maps are slightly different in levels of skill, but you get the idea. But Veg never knew that his friend recreated his entire house in Doom. This is why the map is publicly available to download to honor a friendship. You have a few ways to get into the house, but the most obvious one is the open garage door. Inside a cardboard box, you can find a chainsaw that makes quick work of lesser enemies because it stun locks them more than the average Elden Ring PvP.
Nothing personal, son.
Oh my god. Okay. So on single engagements, it's pretty much impossible to trade damage. And with the house being so small, you'll be able to charge in and cut up any enemy before they can even react. Like I said, the house itself seems pretty normal. There's a kitchen and a living room with a PlayStation 1 hooked up to it. Remember that, guys? A time when the PlayStation actually had games. The gameplay here is fairly straightforward. The only enemies you'll see are zombie men, shotgun guys, imps, and the occasional pinky demon. All of these are lesser enemies that you'd see in the opening levels of official Doom games. The main goal of this level, like pretty much all Doom levels, is to get keycards to access other keycards, to access other keycards, to open the final door, and move on to the next level, where you do the exact same thing again. The first keycard is yellow, and you can find that in the master bathroom, which lets you unlock a yellow door in the downstairs bathroom, which gives you the red keycard, and you can use that to open the red laundry room door to give you the blue keycard. And that's pretty much it. Open the front gate outside the house, and you can leave. We're then taken to the Underhalls map, which is the second map for Doom 2. It plays exactly the same as Underhalls did when it came out all the way back in 1995. You can find the secret wall to give you the mega armor, giving you 200% protection. You can even get the super shotgun here. My house is advertised on the website as being not much of a challenge and roughly 10 minutes of playtime. But surely there's more, right? It's not just a house where you pick up key cards and then leave to play the actual Doom 2. Well, when you complete Underhalls, instead of being taken to the third level of Doom 2, the Gauntlet, a level that's infamous for introducing the chain gunner enemy, a strong zombie that deals rapid hit scan damage from his chain gun, we're instead taken right back into the house. Nothing seems to have changed, apart from the fact that we've kept the equipment from Underhalls. So we do it again, collect the yellow key card, go downstairs, open the yellow door. But wait a minute, the podium outside I mentioned when casing the exterior of the house, it now has a blue face on it. These are called soul spheres, and they are in Doom. Picking one up immediately gives you 100 health and the ability to overheal up to 200 HP, something medkits dotted around the house just can't do. You'll more than likely be drawn to go outside and collect it to increase your odds, but going outside to get the soul sphere, it's gone. And looking inside the house, all the enemies have respawned, waiting for you. And the blue keycard gate to leave the map has changed to a blue skull key, a type of keycard that you'd see in levels taking place in Hell in the main game. There's also the addition of some chain gunners that I mentioned previously. Killing them will give you the chain gun. It's fast firing and shares the same ammo pool as the pistol, so it's basically a direct upgrade. Going inside, there are some subtle changes to the map. The PlayStation 1 has now been replaced with an Xbox original, although the shape of it looks more like a Xbox fridge. Do you remember that? The thing that no one bought, and then people will still cope saying Halo Infinite is like reviving Xbox. Doors now swing open and make a door opening sound, as opposed to originally when they just lifted open and sounded like the mechanical doors of official Doom levels. The mirrors in bathrooms also visibly have a reflection when originally they're all frosted over. Despite that, you, the character, have no reflection. These changes are obvious uses of the UDMF or Universal Doom Map format. This is going to get a little bit nerdy, but this is a specification for laying out maps in a textural way. It's basically a new format that allows features not possible in the original Doom. So this upgraded house is obviously the doing of Veg when he said he was improving upon his deceased friend's original house design he made as a kid. It was at this point I was starting to feel a little bit uneasy, despite nothing overtly scary happening. And my chat over on Pyro Live, where I stream daily, was definitely using my paranoia against me.
Don't do that! 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 Don't do that. Why did you do that?
Going through the same routine of collecting key cards, which are now replaced with skull keys. But when we go to get the blue skull key, the laundry closet is now replaced with a stairway that leads into the attic. You'd think this is where something scary would happen. I mean, it's happened in so many video games and films I can't even recall. But you're lulled into a sense of security by the Doom soundtrack still playing with its classic rock MIDI files. Near a window, you can find the blue skull key, but next to the key is something covered by a tarp. Interacting with the tarp, it falls off, and you're greeted with another mirror. Again, your reflection isn't seen, but looking into it, you can see what looks like a Christmas ball where the skull keycard should be. When you go to leave, however, the front door and the door leading to the garage have disappeared. What's there instead is a closet with a green shirt inside. Interacting with it gives you green armor and 100 points to your armor rating. Not as powerful as mega armor we found in the Underhalls, but we'll take what we can get. The funny thing is, while I was live streaming this, my chat compared the walls disappearing to Skinamarink.
Skinamarink? Oh my god, yeah, no. That's actually so, yeah.
A film where children were trapped inside a house where the doors and windows started disappearing, giving them no chance to escape.
I'm just playing as a literal 2-year-old with a shotgun. That actually happened in Skinamarink, by the way.
Going back into the house, a new corridor has appeared with a doorway. Opening it leads you to a lounge area with a fireplace, and on a table is a bottle of Pepsi.
Ah, dude, they got Pepsi. I love Pips. I want pop. Stop doing that
I've
fucking
donated
donut, man!
$30 in door
Stop!
knocks, and I will
Stop doing that
continue, sloppy
donut!
boy.
Seriously!
Slop-
Stop, man, because it's throwing me off. I keep thinking it's happening in the game.
The lounge itself seems relatively normal, but the room itself makes no sense, because for it to exist would mean it collides directly with the bedroom and bathroom where the yellow skull is found. And this is where the soundtrack slowly begins to change. The music that's been on loop the entire time is Doom 2's Running from Evil soundtrack. It's a fast-paced combat soundtrack that would be perfectly fitting for a traditional Doom level, picking up health items, strafing imp fireballs while firing back. But the soundtrack has become more inconsistent and unstable. The highs and lows are pitch shifted.
Okay, is it just me or the music got a bit weird as well? Did the music get a bit weird? The music sounds like it's a bit distorted, right?
Now, at this point, I started exploring everything I could. The original Doom was already full of secrets that would open by mashing the interact button against a wall, making your character sound like you were trying to have intercourse with whatever you were interacting with. Jumping also isn't something you could do in the original Doom, and it's been disabled here as well. But despite that, you're still able to prop yourself on objects if they're low enough. And I saw that the mirror, despite not showing my reflection, was still showing enemies on the other side. Much like how that Christmas ball was shown in the reflection in the attic. By propping myself on the toilet seat and getting onto the sink counter, I was able to walk through the mirror and everything changed. You're still in the house, but now the entire map is seeped in a cold blue filter. The same filter you'd see looking into the mirror. Doors open with a reverse sound. Enemies scream backwards when they die. And the soundtrack has changed entirely, titled Memory Entry in the game files. It's an incredibly distorted version of Running from Evil that barely resembles the original soundtrack. You can hear the original rock MIDI files trying to break through, but they just fail and repeat over and over. This track was created by Essel Fortium and was inspired by the album Everywhere at the End of Time by the Caretaker, an album that focused on someone with Alzheimer's slowly forgetting everything as the music becomes less composed and more erratic. Little side note, that music album actually became so viral that you had TikTok children commenting on the video telling people, "Don't worry, you won't get dementia if you listen to it."
I was in the bathroom, standing in front of the mirror, shaving. As I looked at my reflection, I noticed it winked at me. It was so strange and unexpected that I threw my razor at the mirror. I was so scared that I expected the mirror to shatter, but instead it stayed intact. I was even more surprised when I put my hand through the mirror and I could feel the glass. I kept going and I was able to climb all the way into the mirror. It was like a tunnel. When I looked back, I saw myself in the mirror. And this time, I winked back. It was so surreal, but I felt like I belonged there. There was something comforting about being in the mirror, like it was my home. I woke up feeling so confused and shocked, and I still can't believe it was just a dream.
It seems that this mirror was a dream that Veg had, and he used it as something to put into the game. This will be a very common theme with future events going forward, especially as the game becomes more unstable. Another reference that actually came to mind here was Darkseid, a point-and-click adventure game that came out in 1992. In that game, the protagonist would have terrifying dreams, which, looking back on it, most people would probably jerk off to now. But some of these nightmares would include the protagonist seeing himself in a mirror, but details were off, only to change into something unrecognizable. On top of that, Darkseid also featured a mirror world that you could walk into. This world took on a heavy HR Giga art style, with every room in the original house then replicated and distorted in the Dark World. On top of that, anything you did in the real world would directly affect the Dark World and vice versa. For example, if you stole a cop's gun off the wall, because police apparently just leave loaded firearms on display for some reason, the Mirror World's version will know that you've taken the gun because he doesn't have it anymore.
So that's where my gun went. You're going to rot for a few centuries, human.
Another possible reference to this dream could be Silent Hill 4: The Room. That game, as the name implies, takes place partly inside an apartment room, not too dissimilar to the house we've been exploring. That game had a travel system where you'd utilize holes found in the walls to get to outside areas of the apartment. Just like how, right now, you're trapped and you can't leave the house, but you're using a mirror to unlock a new area. But most importantly, the two doors to exit that vanished in the real world have actually reappeared again in the mirror world. That means that we could escape and leave. If we do, we finish my house and we're taken to the Underhalls level again, but the mirror world still persists, with the name Underhalls being spelled backwards to Slobodno, still keeping the blue filter, enemies, and even the soundtrack being reversed. Finishing the mirror world of Underhalls just brings us again, straight back to the house. It seems that even going into the opposite reality, we can't escape this house. Going up into the attic in the mirror world, we can find the Christmas bauble. Picking it up gives you the message, "Christmas makes me happy." There's also a baby's bottle that you can pick up in the corner of the attic. It's pretty hard to see, doesn't stand out, and it's very awkward to pick up because of the way you have to position yourself. But if you do, you'll get the notification. It wasn't meant to be. But first, video very expensive to make, so me now have sponsor time. Sponsor? Raid Shadow Legends. Did you know there's now over 800 unique champions?
Guys, what one is your favorite?
My favorite is the S-Rank Septimus, because I'm going to commission art of them as soon as I'm done with the video.
I ain't changed.
It's bread. No, it's not. It's Raid Shadow Legends. Sorry, honey. I can't pay the child support this month. I'm too busy playing with my mythical champions, which is one step above legendary. And they can metamorph, which lets them change between two different forms, giving them new skills and a new look. Look at this guy who grows wings, or this woman who becomes an ugly woman. Also, for new players, you can get hold of the Stag Knight, one of the best epic champions around. And also a skin for the Stag Knight designed by Jontron. Just use the promo code JTSkin before October the 7th. And you know what? Because I'm feeling extra generous, you can also get the free legendary champion, Sun Wukong. All you have to do is log in 7 different days between now and October 23rd. I will happily miss the birth of my first child just to get a free legendary champion. And also, if you use my link in the description or scan the QR code on screen, you'll get the epic champion Talia, 200k silver, 4 energy refills, 1 epic skill tome, and a 1-day XP booster, all worth $30. Wait a minute, Pyrocynical giving me $30 for free? Surely there's a catch. No catch. Raid are just that generous that they're giving it away. Thank you, Raid, for sponsoring this video. Returning, the haunting soundtrack still persists, as if it's followed us into the real world. And now, scattered on the floor is a trail of plastic balls, leading us somewhere. The trail ends in a closet, but instead of it being a dead end, the planks have been ripped up and there's a giant tunnel placed, inviting you in. Jumping down, we're pushed into a ball pit at a daycare. It's definitely seen better days. Rot on the walls, broken windows, blood on the kitchen floor, and that rug that literally every single person had as a kid. There's even a painting of Shrek on the wall, but there's something really uncanny about how low it's rendered in the Doom engine.
Okay, that Shrek actually scared the shit out of me. I thought that was a person.
Now, there is a secret here. The cleaning closet at the daycare has a berserk power-up on the shelf. In the base game of Doom, if you found one of these, it turns the player's vision red and increases the punching damage tenfold, being able to one-tap most lesser enemies. It's impossible to reach, though, because you can't jump. You could enable jumping in the commands, but that would also mean you're the kind of person that puts brightness to the max when playing a horror game. What you're meant to do is go into the toilet behind the closet and punch the crack in the wall. This will make the power-up fall down from the shelf. It's genius because you'd never have to do anything like this in base Doom. You're basically just humping walls until something happens. In the room between the closet and the bathroom, you can find a baseball that looks like it's been thrown into the daycare from a smashed window. Picking it up gives the message, autographed by JJ Hardy. Going into the learning room of the daycare, there's an alphabet on the wall and a chalkboard showing a girl with a turkey. This chalkboard is based on a real-life chalkboard that was found in an Oklahoma school. The chalkboard itself is over 100 years old, still having the date 1917 wrote on it. But the chalkboard here says 1984. There's also another item to pick up. Next to a chair, a Crayola set that gives the message, adult coloring books. With nothing else to do, you can try and leave through the main entrance. But, oh no. Where's the Shrek gone? He was right there. Where did he go?
The Shrek's gone. Where did the Shrek go? Where did the Shrek go?
I know that Shrek on the wall was a literal JPEG, but seeing it gone when returning filled me with immense dread. And I can't believe I'm admitting in front of millions of people that Shrek scared me. With no way out, I went back into the learning room and saw that a new door had appeared. And you know what? I'm just gonna let my live reaction speak for itself.
I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing...
Now, I know the worst way to have a payoff for something is to show a YouTuber being a React Andy, but that build-up of seeing Shrek terrified me. There was no jump scare, no audio cue, and when the Shrek decal disappeared, just that feeling that you knew something was going to happen. And the fact it killed the music right before it happened, despite being the opposite of a jump scare, had an even more profound effect. Shrek himself will just keep slowly walking towards you. He doesn't say anything, he doesn't even bleed when you shoot him. And that threw me off because I thought he was invincible.
Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth.
But putting enough lead into him, he'll explode into concrete.
That's concrete, baby!
Dropping the gate key that you need to leave the park. Before leaving, there's also a stuffed dog that you can pick up with the message, Snugs. Leaving through the gate and opening the door behind it, instead of being taken to the daycare, we're transported back to the house. Nothing seems to have changed, except the plastic balls and pipe leading to the daycare have disappeared, as if they were never there. None of this makes sense, but going into Veg's journal that he left with the game in the Google Drive, we can understand why this made it into the game.
I had an incredibly vivid dream last night. This has been happening for several weeks now, so I feel like I should start documenting them. I'll do my best to recall the events of my dreams. I awoke in a cold sweat. My heart was pounding in my ears. I felt a chill run down my spine. I knew something was wrong. I lay in my bed, too afraid to move, when I heard a faint, ghostly cry coming from the attic. I'd heard this sound before, but this time it was louder and more insistent. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just my imagination, but the more I tried to push it away, the louder it became. I had no choice but to investigate. I got out of bed and slowly crept up the stairs to the attic. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. As I entered the attic, I noticed a trail of children's toys leading out the window. I followed the trail, feeling a strange compulsion to do so. The trail led me to an abandoned daycare center near the edge of town. I stayed back, afraid to enter, but I couldn't help but feel drawn to this place. I knew something was waiting for me inside, something dark and dangerous. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The place was dark and silent, but as I walked around, I noticed the walls were covered in eerie drawings of children and babies. Then I heard the sound of a baby crying again, coming from the back of the room. I followed the sound, and when I reached the back of the room, I saw a crib with a stillborn baby inside. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized what was haunting me. The stillborn baby was the one in the attic. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding in my ears. I knew I had to leave this place, and I quickly ran out the door, never looking back.
It seems that we're reliving the nightmares that Veg had while working on improving the My House map. We went into the attic, but instead of hearing cries, we found a baby bottle saying it was never meant to be, implying there was some kind of tragedy in Veg's life. It's not clear yet, but it could be possible that Veg had a child that died, and he chose to put the memories of them and his past partner into the game. The Shrek creature you fight is nothing more than a childhood nightmare that plagued the creator. Much like how you watching, you've probably seen stuff as a child that terrified you, even though though it was never really meant to be scary in the first place. Items you picked up in the daycare were just reminders of the creator's childhood. Crayons for drawing, a stuffed toy for comfort, and the baseball said it was autographed by J.J. Hardy, who's an American baseball shortstop that was born in 1982 and joined the Major League Baseball in 2005, a time when Veg and his friend would have been kids working on Doom maps. One thing to point out is how the daycare has the exact same structure as the basement of the house. The office turned into the room where the baseball was thrown, and the learning room was originally the downstairs bedroom. With the original house, you never really left. It's more that things around you have changed. As I was exploring more of the house, my Doom brain kicked in and I just started mashing interact with every single wall, hoping that something would happen. And in the basement, something actually did happen. An electrical unit lowered, showing a chalk outline. Now, this outline is a direct reference to The Twilight Zone, a TV series running in the late 50s and mid-60s. It was a science anthology series where characters found themselves dealing with disturbing or unusual events. Episode 91, titled Little Girl Lost, featured a portal to the fourth dimension being marked by a chalk outline, something that directly inspired the backrooms, with people randomly clipping out of the world into liminal spaces. Alright, if you're a little bit too young to get the Twilight Zone, which is probably all of you, even The Simpsons did it. It was a reference in their Treehouse of Horror Halloween special, where Homer ends up going into another dimension, only to find himself in the most despicable and hostile place imaginable. LA. Walking through it, we're transported to a building made out of pure concrete, with other concrete towers opposite. It's brutalist architecture. Brutalist meaning béton brut, or raw concrete in French. Brutalist architecture exists in real life, and it looks dystopian, even on the best of days. We'll talk about the brutalist structure later. I'd talk more about it now, but unfortunately, in my first venture, I slipped on a banana peel that I totally did not edit in post just now, fell off the building, going straight into the abyss. The weird thing is though, when you fall down, you don't die. Instead, the music completely stops and you're transported to a stairwell. I was terrified when this happened, especially because all the music cuts out. I ascended up the stairs, I descended down the stairs, just waiting in anticipation for something to jump out and insta-kill me. Because that's pretty much what happens in every other horror game when you enter some kind of fail state. Because I believed that this is the game over part of the game. Kind of like that game when the power runs out, you've got like 20 seconds before you actually die. The game that made a generation of children furries. But despite that, nothing happens. Nothing comes out to get you. We're so conditioned to jump scares in horror media that when it happens, you just go, oh my god, spooky. But then you almost get a sigh of relief knowing that after a jump scare, it's basically the longest passage of time before another jump scare will happen. But because the staircase never actually has that happen, you never leave that realm of suspense, waiting for the spooky thing to happen. It's dread over fear, which is a great subversion considering most horror games today have a jump scare as a fail state, not a never-ending staircase. The staircase itself is never ending. But if you interact with a door, you'll be greeted by a room made of blue sky and clouds. A huge contrast to the areas we've explored previously. But despite that, there's nothing to do here, only to take in the refreshing skybox and press on. Another door can be opened, showing a deep, pulsating chasm that seems to reach hundreds of meters in both directions, with the other side being the house. Walking over the chasm, we're spat out, again, back into the house. This is the fail state system of my house. You can die in the game, and trust me, we'll get into that later because the mechanic behind it is amazing.
Oh, man!
But the only way to truly die is for an enemy to kill you. Falling into pitfalls or off ledges will usually just put you in this repeating staircase so you can try again. You can save scum in this map, like all Doom maps, but I feel the fact you're not killed for falling into the chasms, Veg wanted people to experiment to see what they could find. And trust me, there is loads of stuff I missed on my first playthrough. Also, I'd like to say, if you play this WOD, please make sure that you play it on your own to be fully immersed. Because I streamed it, and having every Zoomer in the chat try to be an SNL writer, it was just awful.
Hello, I would like to fart into microphone. I think it would be funny.
Hey, it's me, Joe Biden. I would like one small child.
OMG, Joe, here, take my newborn.
I really like, man, I'm trying so hard to get immersed in this, right?
Back in the house, another change occurred when you went from the default house. Before trying to pick up the soul sphere outside, all the sinks were full, but the upgraded version of the house has some sinks that are empty and a barely filled bathtub with a rubber duck inside it. Naturally, you see the rubber duck and try to pick it up, thinking it's another item, but there's an invisible invisible wall in the way, and jumping is disabled for this map. But if you interact with the sink next to the bath water will slightly rise. If you go around the house and fill up every single sink, the bath will fill and the invisible wall will disappear, letting you get the rubber duck with the caption, "Chugga chugga, horse horse." No idea what that means, but looking it up, it comes up with the profile of a racehorse called Boom Chugga Lugga with a 4% win rate. If you get in the bath and stay in it, you'll slowly find yourself sinking to the bottom. The bath seemingly having no bottom, just an endless chasm. When you sink to the bottom and eventually swim out, the entire house is flooded, with you going down to the basement and wading through waist-high water, and barely being able to see due to the power being cut off. So basically, anyone that lives in the east of England twice a year. The state of this house was actually hinted at in the cheats. Without opening the console, if you just entered ID Choppers in-game, a code which gives you the chainsaw and invulnerability in normal Doom, you'll get the message, "Leave the entrance to the bathroom unsullied for a big fucking reward." Eventually exploring the house, going down one corridor, it begins to repeat itself, snaking around until taking you to a pool-themed liminal space. This is the main way you'll get into this new area, but you can also accidentally stumble on it like I did trying to leave the flooded basement and explore the upstairs again.
What the fuck?
A really cruel way to punish people that actually wanted to backtrack and explore. Inside, you'll hear some screeching. And stick around too long and you'll be attacked by near-invisible enemies called nightmares. They're reskinned imps, but don't appear until they're in melee range. Not a super threatening enemy, but hearing something before you see it is always a classic horror trope to keep you on your toes. Alright, this is like totally off topic, but they actually remind me of those ghosts in the Rugrats game on the PS1. I have no idea why, but they used to absolutely terrify me. I did not touch that game again until I was a grown adult, even though they're just moving PNGs. The open plan of the pool has windows showing the clear sky, and waterfall pitfalls that lead into seemingly nothingness. Going inside the changing rooms, they warp and repeat to be miles long. Unless you keep track of where you're going, you could just be going in circles. I already mentioned that this is a liminal space, but myhouse.wad uses them as a huge inspiration. I know we're definitely reaching a point where people are getting backrooms fatigue. Oh no, long hallways and fluorescent lights. I'm going insane. But Veg brought a really unique twist by implementing them here. The entire meaning of liminal space is referring to a transitional period, a gap, somewhere you're not meant to be, somewhere familiar but warped. Originally, there were places of nostalgia, a childhood pool, an old shopping mall, but the internet has twisted them into something much more foreboding and sinister now. And yet, just like the daycare, if you look at the floor plan of the liminal pool, it's exactly the same as the house we started off in. All of this, again, directly reflects a dream Veg had, which he noted in his journal.
I was able to actually get some sleep last night. However, I continue having these vivid, cryptic dreams, and they keep feeling more personal and unsettling. I'm starting to prefer the tiresome days to my dreams. I was dreaming about taking a nice hot bath. I felt myself sinking deeper and deeper into the warm water until I couldn't breathe. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. I was drowning in my own bathtub. Suddenly, I felt a jolt, as if I'd been pulled out of the water. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in a subterranean cave, illuminated by a faint, eerie blue light. I could feel a chill in the air. I could hear the echoing of demons in the distance. I tried to scream, but my voice was muffled by the darkness of the cave. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized I was being hunted by something unseen. I heard the scraping of claws on the rocks, and I felt the ground shaking beneath me. I was terrified, and I started to run, and I ran and ran until I found a small crevice in the wall of the cave. I squeezed through it and hid in the darkness, hoping the demons wouldn't find me. Eventually, I woke in my own bed, safe and sound, but I couldn't help but feel a lingering fear that the demons were still out there, watching and waiting.
Exploring the locker rooms in the pool, you can open one to get yourself a backpack of ammo. This isn't a collectible, but a traditional item you'd find in Doom. It's a pretty self-explanatory power-up. It doubles your ammo capacity, doubling 50 shotgun shells to 100, 200 bullets to 400, and so on. It's a really sneaky secret to players, because in the next room, in a pool, is a giant, fast-moving enemy called Hellfish in the game files. This thing is tanky, 1000 HP tanky, and you'll probably use most of your resources trying to kill it. Or you could be super stingy like me and try to trade health with the fish and save ammo by using your chainsaw. But even doing that, it has another trick up its sleeve.
Oh, did it just explode as well? Oh, no. Oh no, that was a bad move.
Killing it, it'll explode into 12 smaller variants of itself. These things are fast, like kids browsing TikTok on Adderall fast. And they'll easily waste all of your ammo. And if you try to use the chainsaw, they'll gang up on every angle and quickly kill you. It seems like a pointless distraction, but by jumping into the pool, you can find another item to pick up. A D20 with the message, roll for intercourse. Wait, what? There's also a hole where the tiles should be. You can explore past the D20 into a network of tunnels, but you'll have to take frequent breaks at sewer grates unless you want to suffocate to death underwater. That's one of the benefits of GZ Doom, being able to swim. It's basically a very limited flight ability, unlike vanilla Doom, where you'd sink faster than the Google Stadia. This entire section, to me, reminds me of a game I played as a kid called Heart of Darkness. In that game, there'd be a lot of sections making you swim through incredibly tight caves with very few chances to catch your breath before drowning. Just a quick tangent about Heart of Darkness, by the way. This game, despite being rated E for everyone, is one of the darkest and most gruesome games you could ever play. You play as a child, and he can fall to his death. All right, doesn't sound too bad. I mean, a lot of games have you falling to your death. What about being crushed by a dinosaur skull? What about getting your own skull crushed while being eaten alive? All right, let's say that's a bit too gruesome. Instead, you could just have your back broken by flying enemies. Rated E for everyone, by the way. Also, on top of that, Heart of Darkness and My House actually share a theme in common. We're not actually sure what's fiction and what's real. I mean, shooting your demons until they explode is much more accessible than dealing with life's problems. Anyways, while exploring the tunnels, you'll get used to the small gaps in between sewer grates to catch your breath, which is why the developer sneakily put one of them being just too short. So you'll reach it thinking you'll replenish your O2, only to be rewarded with nothing except to slowly choke to death underwater. Dying, you'll get the message, player can't swim. Yeah, cheers for that. Finally, escaping the tunnels by interacting with some of the swimming pool tiles, we're taken to a strange area. Almost looking like the textures haven't loaded in properly. A strange mix between the pool and also the brutalist complex we briefly saw earlier. Almost like two realities are coming together. What's most interesting is the skybox. It's surprisingly pleasant compared to all the other Doom-related skyboxes we've seen. But we're not safe. Far away, you're sensed by new enemies. These are vampires, and they're pale like imp monsters which throw homing projectiles at you. With the ammo bag collected earlier, you can dispatch them with the chain gun fairly easily. But that being said, you do know what mod you're playing, right? You know that it's never that easy. That's why as soon as you start to step on the levitating platforms, this happens.
Oh shit. Oh no. What the fuck is that? That's not a Keiko demon. What the fuck is that?
These are Hemo Demons, a pale variant of the iconic Kako Demon. They move and attack the same, but the key difference is if they hit you with their projectiles, you're given a hidden stat called Bloodlust, which makes them throw increasingly faster projectiles at you. This is the only time you fight them in the entire game, and with that hidden stat in mind, they were probably made to aggro the player with so much damage that if they didn't die straight away, they'd lose their footing and fall off the platforms into the clouds below. If you do fall off like I did, you'll end up in this room with the same skybox we saw earlier, being taken back to the infinite stairway and spit back into the house to try and explore it again. But unfortunately, the way back is blocked because the house is no longer flooded and the sinks can no longer be filled. Now, there is something that stands out here, you know, apart from pretty much everything in this mod. There's a single square platform, a little lower than the others, and it's all black compared to the other platform's concrete grey color. And there's also another square of identical shape and color on the other side of the platform. If you walk from one side to the other, you'll notice there's an invisible platform. I noticed this by shooting the floor on accident, and there actually were bullet holes in the floor. Something Dark Souls, Prism Stone, Crystal Caves, shut up. Reaching the end of the invisible walkway, there's another item you can pick up. A wedding band with the message, I do. Returning to the original walkway and interacting with a concrete wall, we're taken back to the brutalist structure we briefly saw before. This place is cold and aggressive, and again calls back to liminal spaces. One thing the game cruelly does is place an exit portal right across one of the chasms, but because jumping is disabled in this map, it'll always be visible, but just out of reach. That is, unless you enable jumping in the options and just get over there yourself. Haha, get fucked, myhouse.wad. What does WAD even mean anyway? Whack-ass Doom mod, I think. Oh, for fuck's sake, not again. I tested my luck a little bit more and did some blind jumps across the chasm to see if any of the rooms over the voids had anything of value. I did look out and actually find some things. One had a megasphere, but the last one I came across had me puzzled. I saw what looked like a black object in a room outside of where the bathroom was. Flinging myself into the room, I found the room had pretty much every object blacked out, and a couch pointed at a TV screen, showing the room that I was in. Jumping around the back, there's a power plug that snakes from the TV to the wall. Using the plug, the screen goes black until you plug it back in, and every single TV in the world will now be static, displaying channel 3. The brutalist structure starts off not making sense. Doors open up to seemingly dead ends or sudden drops taking us to new places of a seemingly endless complex. But once we start to put the pieces together, this isn't just a random maze. It's the house. Again, the exact same house we've been in since the start of the game, but all the walls, floors, and ceilings have been replaced with concrete. But reaching into the depths of the concrete house, we're not alone. There's definitely something watching us.
Hey Pyro,
Oh!
how did you meet your girlfriend?
I can't do
and
this.
you
I
have
can't
any
do
dating
this.
tips?
I can't do this.
Cheers.
And considering I was alone with no enemies for the past 20 minutes or so, this really caught me off guard.
Oh no, this is a maze. Oh. What? Ah!
My instinctive reaction was to shoot the dog. My thinking was, it's one of the killer dogs that was in Wolfenstein 3D, the 1992 predecessor to Doom, and by me striking first, I thought I was genuinely defending myself, only for chat to absolutely chew me out, saying it was the second worst thing I've ever done.
How is it bad ending? What do you mean? It's the dog was attacking me, dude.
After rerunning the house WOD, I made my way back to the dog and realized he was completely friendly. He only barked to let me know I was there.
You stupid bitch.
Which, if anything, made me feel like a complete piece of shit. The dog will follow you around the complex as much as it can, only stopping when you get to an elevated level of geometry, after which it will be unable to pass, but will still run around the area you were last. Which is actually another masterstroke in this game's design, because some areas are tight dead ends. So if the dog actually sat still and waited for you, because it has collision, it'd basically body block you, forcing you to reload a save. One thing I did notice though, whenever the dog died, nearby, I could hear a demonic wailing sound. This makes much more sense going into the next room as you're attacked by a giant two-headed dog.
Fucking hell!
Its model taken straight from the Cerberus boss from Blood, another first-person shooter from 1997 developed by Monolith, the same company that made Fear. One of my favorite first-person shooters ever. It has 3000 HP, so triple that of the Hellfish. You'll have a really hard time trying to take it down. And much like taking down the fish, you're punished more than rewarded. With the Hellfish, it explodes into a dozen smaller, hard-to-hit versions. But by killing the Cerberus, you'll hear it collapse. But a faint whimper nearby, and realize that by killing the monster, you also kill the friendly dog as well. There's a direct connection to this dog in Veg's journal, finding his friend's sketchbook.
I spent some time looking through my friend's sketchbook, just in case there was something important in there. I had no idea what to expect, but I was definitely not prepared for the strange artwork I found inside. The sketches were mostly abstract and dark, with a lot of imagery depicting death, sadness, and despair. As I flipped through the pages, the artwork seemed to get increasingly darker. And I began to feel a sense of dread. I decided that I'd seen enough and closed the book, feeling a little bit shaken. After that, I decided to try and take my mind off of things and do some Amazon shopping. I need a USB 3.5-inch floppy drive if I'm gonna try and recover some of these old files. Lord knows whether anything can be retrieved from these discs. They're nearly 20 years old. Fingers crossed.
There's another folder in the My House Google Drive called Sketchbook. Opening it, you can see a drawing of the house, a blue keycard typical of Doom maps, and also a heavily distorted dog. Another entry even goes on to say that this isn't the worst that his friend drew, that there were much more darker, sinister things inside the sketchbook, and how it also directly affected Veg's mental health as a side effect for being subjected to it.
My package finally arrived in the mail, so I spent the day going through old floppy disks. I plugged it in and started to play around with it. I was surprised to find that I could actually recover data from my old floppy disks. I had some old files from my high school days that I thought were long gone, but here they were. My friend and I used to make Doom maps in high school, and I was so excited to find them again. But then I stumbled across a map that I had never seen before. It was a map of my friend's house. I was so surprised to learn that he'd been working on this map in secret. Playing the map made me realize that the best way to honor our friendship is to clean up his work and release it to the public. We never made any of our Doom stuff available to others. I guess we were young and intimidated by the great work being produced by the community. But I'm impressed with the quality of what's currently here in this map, and I think it's a fitting tribute to clean it up for others to enjoy.
This is why the brutalist structure is probably one of the hardest parts of the entire WOD, because you have to navigate an area with an enemy that wants to kill you, but you can't fight back, because in doing so, you're hurting the dog that was loyal to you. Veg could have just made the dog invulnerable, but by punishing you in such a cruel way, it's actually pretty smart. The game's script reveals that both dogs' fates are linked. The game will constantly check that both dogs are alive, and if one dies, both die. Trying to maneuver around the dog, you'll find another item sitting on a ledge, a lone pumpkin. Picking it up gives you the message, Pumpkin Rick. Fortunately, that joke was already long dead before the Justin Roiland allegations.
Pumpkin Rick. Is that Pickle Rick?
I also noticed another item just out of reach in a crawl space, way above the ground floor. Another thing to point out as well is how the room with the Cerberus is the exact same room as the one with the friendly dog, only made much bigger. I didn't even notice this until cycling both rooms a couple of times. Next to a huge pit, which is meant to resemble the bath in the original house, we can find a narrow space that seems to lead us to nowhere. But by building up enough sprint, we can make it across the gap to the walkway in the middle of the room with the Cerberus. One thing I loved about doing this is by looking down, you can still see the Cerberus sprite is basically a couple of pixels, because original Doom maps were never really meant to be designed for you to have a huge height advantage to enemies. Going through another narrow tunnel, you can find the item that seemed almost impossible and out of reach. A can of tuna, giving you the message, kitties love tuna. You know who else loves tuna? People bulking on TikTok apparently. Someone tell bodybuilders that fun is actually legal. There's also another item you can find. Kiting around the Cerberus, you can find a small doghouse. Way too large for the Cerberus, but an adequate fit for the friendly dog we found first. Next to the house is a water and food bowl, and also a frisbee. Picking it up gives you the message, good doggies are good doggies. It seems that the two versions of the Brutalist house represent how a child and an adult would both view the same environment. The room with the Cerberus is enormous, but the room with the friendly dog is scaled down, almost like you're so used to the same environment, it's gotten smaller. Time changes perspective, so something that terrified you as a child would be viewed as a friend in adulthood. It's important to note as well how time changes perspectives, but also bad first impressions can taint our view of the world, something we've seen numerous times in this house. With seemingly all the items collected, you can push on through to yet another narrow tunnel, which ends with a power box. Interacting with it lowers it, and you're taken to a parking lot, which then leads into an airport, complete with fully functioning escalators. The airport, like pretty much every area we've been to, is completely abandoned, with holiday destinations being advertised on the walls like Lebanon and Porto Vallarta. Even though everyone's gone, the entire place is still functional. The lights are on, and even the security scanner still works. Despite that, there's random hand luggage and children's drawings placed all over the airport, implying people left in a hurry or just collectively disappeared. You can try to leave through a very, very tedious process of going through the rope barriers, only for the doors to be shut. But don't worry, for simulating being in a queue in a video game, your reward is a health bonus of 1 point. This was probably left for the same kind of people that get so bored of playing GTA that they actually try to drive around the city legally, stopping at every red light. Again, fun is legal. There's a plane ready for takeoff outside, and next to it is a list of departures, with every single flight already either departed, delayed, or cancelled, with one exception. A flight to Dallas that leaves in just under an hour. Seeming that we've got some time before the flight leaves, I decided to explore the rest of the airport. Upstairs, there's a lounge with some much needed health, seeming I was on 6 HP at the time. There's also a small convenience store where nothing appears out of the ordinary, except a bloodstained shirt on a rack. Interacting with the bloodstain will wipe it off the shirt, revealing a heart, and you'll be rewarded with Mega Armor, which is 200 points to your armor rating, double that of the green shirt we found in the original house. Whatever this shirt is, or what's on it, has huge implications. Lastly, there are the male and female toilets. The male toilets hold nothing notable, apart from one guy apparently trying to flush himself down the toilet. But in the entryway of the female toilets is a dropped handbag with an empty bottle of pills giving you the notification, refill needed. The toilets don't appear out of the ordinary for any other female toilets, with half of the women using them clearly forgetting to flush, but looping around the toilets, they slowly start to change. The walls become soaked with blood, and the toilet entrance has become completely blocked off. Now, at this point, my doom brain switched on, trying to find any sort of way out by interacting with a wall or just any kind of surface. The toilets, the mirror, the towel dispenser. But letting my guard down, I was killed by a new enemy, a reskinned pinky demon with glowing yellow eyes, horns, and spines on its back, called Blood Fiends, and they spit. When I got cornered and died, I was about to load a quick save, but my chat begged me not to and let it play out. I had no idea why they'd suggest something like that, but I did as they asked. Mostly because one of them gave me $5 earlier, and I need to keep my parasocial relationship intact. But not doing anything, the screen slowly fades to black. And you're taken somewhere else. You slowly wake up in a hospital bed with a vitals monitor beeping steadily in the background. You're still alive, but you're not in the same place where you died. This is the point where I expected a doctor to come over to me and say, "You've been in a coma for 7 years." I'm not even joking. A mod I played recently called Afraid of Monsters, which was the predecessor to Cry of Fear, had the exact same ending where you wake up in a coma and it was all in their head. But this isn't the ending. It's another piece of the puzzle. Leaving the hospital bed to explore your room, the window that should be showing the outside world is completely bricked off. And leaving your room, there's a winding circular hallway that wraps around the hospital floor. Also, keep in mind, the music that was playing previously is totally absent. So the only noises you can hear are the vital sign machines and doors swinging open as you interact with them. You can try to interact with other patient doors, but nothing happens. 337, 338, nothing happens. But one room stands out, with the door number unreadable. A faint flat line on the vitals monitor can be heard inside, and looking inside, you can vaguely make out a human shape, this being the first possible human we've seen in the entire game. And I tried to rush around to find a way inside the room. Down the hallway in an admin office, there's a key. Picking up the key gives the message EN/1C. Going back into the room that now opens with the key, you can definitely make out that it's a person behind the sheet, but no amount of interactions will let you pull the sheet back. On the chair next to them is another bottle of empty pills, the exact same that was found in the women's toilet at the airport, but these can't be picked up. But there is one other thing you can interact with in the room. Next to the wall is an AED kit or defibrillator. Touching it instantly transports you back into the women's toilets at the airport with all your health restored, and also gives you the berserk power-up so you can pummel whatever killed you in the first place. Leaving the female toilets, as soon as you step out of the door, all the blood and enemies disappear instantly. On top of that, the gender signs are swapped over, so the female toilets have become male. With so many questions, but seemingly nothing else to do here, we can board the plane leaving for Dallas. As soon as you get on the plane, it takes off. But much like most of this map, you're totally on your own, with no other passengers sat down. Worst of all, no one trying to get a sneaky vape in the toilet.
Maybe you should try getting a job.
Even heading to the cockpit, you'll realize that no one's piloting the plane. Interacting with anything on the control panel sends an alert through the entire plane. Oxygen masks are dropped, and a new enemy spawns, the Blot. They're exclusive to the plane and have incredibly low health at only around 20 points, but they move fairly quickly and can overwhelm you in numbers, especially for how tight the aisle of the plane is. Although they look nothing alike, they share the exact same sound files as the Lost Souls in the base Doom game. Running to the back of the plane, there's a door that's burst open. I know the mod isn't exactly realistic. I'm amazed that the air pressure difference hasn't sucked you out or killed you. But then again, you do need to suspend your disbelief a fair bit for this mod.
User was banned from the server.
Like, you know, the mirrors that have no reflection and the two-headed dogs. Jumping outside the plane, you fall through the clouds and spawn on the bed, back inside the house. Probably the biggest implication yet that this was all a dream.
It was all a dream!
Ironically, this is yet another documented dream that Veg had.
Last night I had a nightmare that felt so real I can still feel the fear and terror coursing through me as I write this. I was on an airplane and I was the only passenger. I looked out the window to see the ground below and noticed that the terrain was unfamiliar. I had no idea where I was or where I was going. Suddenly the plane started to shake violently and I heard a loud noise coming from the engine. In the distance, I could see a huge storm cloud coming towards me. I tried to communicate with the pilot, but I couldn't hear him over the sound of the engine. The plane began to dive suddenly and I felt a huge jolt. I looked out the window again and saw that the plane was heading for some kind of structure. I closed my eyes and felt the plane crash. I felt the impact and heard the screams and cries from the people around me. I then woke up, my heart pounding and my body drenched in sweat. I don't know if it's the memories of my friend that keep flooding.
That being said, the house has changed yet again since we last visited. It isn't flooded now, but instead completely barren. Every single shelf and cupboard is empty, and most of the furniture has been removed. The house doesn't feel hostile anymore, but barren. Alone. The biggest change since we last visited is how the door entrance has spawned in again, finally letting us leave. But as soon as you go to leave, the soundtrack stops again. Turning around, the entire house has disappeared, and all that remains is a single for sale sign for a plot of land from Navidson Realty, and apparently it's already been sold. With nothing left to do, we leave using the blue skull key we obtained much earlier on, and enter the teleporter to again be taken back to the underhalls. But obviously, there has to be more here. It can't just end with the house being sold. So little is explained. I reloaded a save right before leaving the empty house and went into the basement, and one of the bookcases was replaced with a hole in the wall. Going inside, it's pitch black. Nothing is there to be found, but this motivated me to try to explore the rest of the house. So I played through Underhalls again, which is the canon way to reset the house without being a save scummer like me. But one thing I did notice while charging through the level is the animation for my super shotgun was smooth, like really smooth. The Doom 2 reload animation for the super shotgun is only 3 frames, emptying the cylinders, putting the 2 shells in, and closing the gun. But this was so much more fluid. This made me realize these smooth weapon animations kicked in as soon as we went into the updated version of the house. And they've stuck, so something else must have changed. Getting back into the My House level, I tried experimenting. I opened up console commands and typed in no clip. Something I'd spent hours experimenting with in my Half-Life 2 days, with the message appearing, be careful not to clip out of reality in the wrong areas, and turning it back off saying, better safe than sorry. With no clip on, when I'd walk outside any of the game's set barriers, I'd be transported into the backrooms. As soon as you enter, the music immediately stops, which again is like what happens for like 50% of this mod. If you've seen any backrooms videos in the past 5 years, you know what to expect. Empty office blocks, the fluorescent buzzing lights that give the entire place a sickly beige hue. And while exploring out of frustration of not finding anything, I did something very, very stupid. I shot my pistol. Whatever's down here now knows of your presence, and just in the corner of my eye I could start to see an unknown shape following me. This is the Skin Stealer. It's a tall, dark figure that you can outrun, but if you linger around in the same spot long enough, it'll teleport next to you, dealing insane damage. By the way, its health let me read this. 9,999,999,999. So to say it's unkillable is probably a fair statement. The funny thing is, you would actually be able to kill it if you telefragged it. The process of teleporting exactly where an enemy is standing, which results in an instant kill, no matter what the health. But there's no teleporter here, so all we can do is run. Eventually, the Skin Stealer will catch up to you and will kill you. There's no ammo or health pickups in the entirety of the backrooms. But there is a way out that most people don't actually know about. If you go into the largest room, the one with the highest ceiling, go through the rightmost north door. You'll be able to tell it's the north wall because one of the doors directly opposite will be slightly shorter than the rest. Walk into it and you hit a wall. Then turn right, immediately turn right again. Then walk into another wall and turn right once again. Then make a left and you should be greeted by an iron door that you can open to take you back to the infinite stairway, giving you another chance to play the level again without having to restart or save scum. Usually you only end up in the backrooms if you use no clip to explore, but there's a legitimate way to get there as well. Remember that impossible to reach teleporter in the Brutalist complex? You can actually get there without jumping. If you equip the rocket launcher and play like any TF2 soldier with 10,000 hours of experience, you'll be able to make the gap, and this teleporter will take you straight into the backrooms. Nothing's different. If anything, it's punishment for experimenting. Also, I suppose Veg is probably a pyro main. I can relate, man. Don't worry. Speaking of teleporters, how most of my house operates is on silent teleportations. Crossing over lines, which teleports you to different versions of the map. Even more sneaky is creating portals to make impossible rooms possible, like the backrooms, allowing it to fold back upon itself like an IKEA showroom. Another YouTuber, David X Newton, goes into far greater detail on everything that makes my house tick. I highly recommend giving his 3-part series a watch if this has piqued your interest. The technical details of this mod even go into each cheat that you can use in Doom. I've already talked about some of them, but pretty much every single cheat gives you a unique message. Typing in IDKFA, the cheat which gives you all weapons, you'll get the message, "It's about the journey, not the destination." But some of these messages actually hint at extra items or content in the game. IDFA, the code to give you all items except the keys, will say, "If you find yourself exploring another map, bring a super shotgun back with you." Like how we brought the super shotgun back with us from the underhalls. Or how putting IDDQD, a cheat for invulnerability, will give the message, "My reflection winked at me. I covered the mirror in the attic to be safe." The same attic we found in the house and what Veg dreamt about in his journal. Some of the cheats are self-aware. Putting in IMDMUS1, which in any other Doom map would just change the music to whatever level you wanted, you'll get the message, "This isn't just D-running, you know. Let it play out." D-running is the name of the Running from Evil soundtrack that plays at the beginning of the WOD. Exploring the house once more, I really wanted to find out what was behind that bookcase before the house got emptied out. It's protected by a bookshelf that can't be interacted with, but as soon as we pick up the milkshake in the downstairs area, a sparking breaker switch can be heard from the bookcase, and it's shifted slightly. Interacting with it, it finally moves aside, revealing the broken breaker box. Interacting with it, the screen goes black. And when it slowly fades back in, screaming can be heard all around you. Looking outside, no one can be found, but the sky is a sickly red color. Remember the cheats I mentioned earlier giving cryptic messages? If you typed in IDDQD a second time to turn God mode off, you'll get the message, "There's no good outcome from a house fire." All the lights in the house are off, but now it's populated by various monsters waiting to attack you. These consist of Strygers and vampires. We've seen both of these enemies before. The Stryger is melee only and drags itself across the floor, leaving a trail of blood. These things were also in the bathroom attack at the airport, and vampires were dotted around the open sky area where the wedding ring was found. Strangest of all about this map, as soon as we go upstairs to investigate the screaming, it stops entirely. Killing the enemies and investigating the house, we can see that it's in really poor condition, the worst we've ever seen. It's been badly burned with the foundation showing and all the glass smashed in. Next to the bed is a burned journal that you can pick up, giving the message, "Tarnished history." Where the laundry room used to be, there's a broken picture frame you can pick up, giving you the message, "Ruined memories." In another closet is the final item you can pick up in this version of the house, a badly damaged teddy bear that gives the message, "Innocence lost." This version of the house is again reflected in another dream that Veg had. The entire journal entry is crossed out as if it's something he didn't want to remember.
I had the strangest dream last night about my childhood friend who recently passed away. We were playing Legos in his basement like we used to do as kids. And when I turned around, he was gone. The house was empty and silent. Everything was so quiet and still. I started to smell smoke and hear screams from upstairs. I ran upstairs, and when I got there, the house was just a burned frame. Smoke was getting thicker and thicker, and I could barely see or breathe. I searched for my friend, but I couldn't find him anywhere. I couldn't see anything. I started to panic, and then I found myself outside in the fog. I was alone, but I could hear low growls in the distance. When I woke up, I wished so badly that it was all just a dream, but I knew deep down that it was real. I just missed my friend so much, and it's hard to think that he's gone. There's nothing worse than letting your mind dwell on something. After a while, it starts to consume you. Just now, I decided to order a replacement set of smoke detectors with CO2 sensors, just in case.
Another possible reason the words are crossed out is because he's trying to hide the dream from himself. It brings up too many bad memories, but can't bring himself to delete it, so instead crosses over it. Picking up all the items, it seems there's no way outside the house, with the doors still being replaced with walls. But going back downstairs, the sky changes from a hellish red to a moody grey. And actually, the entirety of the downstairs has now changed itself, giving way to concrete. Interacting with one of the walls will lower it and take us back to the brutalist structure with the dogs. On the outset, it seems that we've been given one more chance to correct the mistake we made coming here. So we do it all again. Go through the concrete structure, collect the items, go back to the airport, fight the monsters in the toilet, get on the plane, escape through the emergency exit. But instead of being rewarded with the true ending, we just woke up in the bed again like it was all a dream. But this time, the burnt house from earlier has followed us. But it's obvious that years have passed. The bed frame you woke up on is just charcoal. Roots have overgrown all the windows, and the ceiling fan has crashed into the floor. The sinks are rusted green. I really tried here. I explored every part of the house just to find something worthwhile, some kind of secret, but there was nothing. If anything, this was an even worse outcome than the previous ending, because instead of the house being abandoned, it was practically destroyed. So I walked outside and was again greeted by that for sold sign from Navidson Realty. So I tried everything again. I played through the entire game trying to find any deviations or any way to get a better ending. There had to be more than this. A game with so many secrets and so deviously crafted couldn't have such a linear one-note ending. I went through the daycare, the flooded house, the burned house, the brutalist house, the airport. But only when I was exploring the mirror world yet again, I found something that stood out. 2 empty frames with 8 empty portraits. And in the real world was the exact same thing. 8 empty portraits. The cheat, IBDHOLD, which gives you one of 6 of the game's consumables, depending on what letter you use, will give you the message, "The living room painting hides a clue," if you find all the artifacts. I started to collect the items as usual, finding some others that I didn't pick up before, like a bottle of wine in the mirror world that I missed, giving the message, "Drunk buddy." And then, checking the frames, one of them had been filled in with the alcohol icon, so I knew what I had to do. The only problem is, this isn't 8 items, but 16 items, because the mirror world has its own portraits. No other version of the house has this, and it got a bit confusing picking up items in the non-mirror world, only for them to appear in the mirror world, and vice versa. I went upstairs and collected the Christmas ball and the baby bottle again, and even though the ball was in the mirror world, it would appear in the original house's frame. I went back into the daycare, picked up the baseball and the crayons. I went outside again to kill Shrek, but this time I was obviously prepared for him.
Oh, wait a minute. I got the super shotgun. Yo, fuck now, buddy. Oh, you're gonna die. One more hit. One more hit. Yeah.
Lastly, I picked up the stuffed toy from the swing. Checking back with the real world painting, the baseball, baby bottle, and Christmas ball had all been filled, with the crayons and toy being filled up in the mirror world. From here, I retread my steps for what I did on previous runs. Picked up the Pepsi from the newly spawned room. I got the milkshake from the downstairs extension of the house. I flooded the house yet again, went into the pool, picked up the D20, went back to the open area, ran across the invisible walkway, and got the wedding ring. Went back into the brutalist house, petted the PNG of a dog, picked up Pumpkin Rick, picked up the tuna, and finally the frisbee one last time. Entering the airport, I picked up the empty pills and the refilled medication after fighting the monsters. The empty bottle doesn't count towards filling the picture frame, but the refill one does. One thing that's also incredibly easy to miss here is a BFG. Remember the screenshots of the game Veg was showing off? One featured a BFG in the corner of the bathroom. Positioning yourself exactly where the screenshot shows will give you the most powerful and probably inconsistent weapon in the entire game. Now, the thing is, my house doesn't actually change the BFG, but I've always just found it to be a gun that can one-tap enemies or do no damage at a huge ammo cost. That's because the energy balls of the BFG randomly deal anywhere between 100 or 800 damage, so it could 2-tap a cyber demon or not even kill a Keiko demon depending on RNG. Going through the airport onto the plane and jumping out, we wake up on the bed yet again. But now the entirety of the 2 portraits have been filled, at least in this world anyway. Checking the mirror portrait, there's still one more item missing. I thought I missed something, but something in the house has actually changed. A painting on the wall that usually depicts flowers now shows an opening in the fence outside. right next to the metal pole where the soul sphere was originally found lying. The item that basically took us down this entire rabbit hole. Going outside and humping pretty much every wooden plank, eventually one lowers, exactly where the painting depicted it. Walking through it, the environment suddenly changes to a forest area, and now it's nighttime, with the moody skybox being replaced with a mostly clear night sky, bright stars, and a full moon. And much like pretty much every bizarre area we've experienced, the soundtrack is just non-existent. Which I do want to say, every time the soundtrack cuts off, like, even though there are no jump scares in this WOD, I always thought something scary was going to happen.
I can't see anything in front of me. Okay, I got scared by a road sign. Really? Really?
Eventually, you'll stumble upon a car that's crashed into a tree. The music playing from it took me a while to track down, but it's on YouTube called The Most Mysterious Song on the Internet. That's not the actual name of the song, but it's so infamous because no one actually knows its real name. It was recorded from a German radio station called NDR between 1982 and 1984, and to this day, still, no one knows the name or the band behind it. The car doors are open, implying whoever was in the crash survived and got out.
I was driving along a road in the woods, when all of a sudden, my car veered off the road and crashed into a tree. I woke up to find myself in the driver's seat with an injured and bleeding leg. My head was spinning and I felt disorientated. I dragged myself out the car and hobbled my way through the woods in the hopes of finding help. My leg was in agony and I felt like I was gonna faint. Through the trees, I saw some lights from a lonely gas station. I was relieved to find it open, but then I realized that there was nobody there. I had no idea where everyone had gone. As I was standing there, I heard some strange noises coming from the woods around me. I was too scared to investigate, so I just stood there, feeling scared and alone. Suddenly, I heard a car in the distance and I limped towards it. Thank goodness. It was a taxi driver who was able to take me to the hospital. I eventually woke up in a cold sweat, not sure if I was relieved or disappointed that it was just a dream.
This is the car from Veg's dream. The car crash that he survived and escaped. Directly in front of the crash is a trail of blood. Following it will lead to a shell garage, with the letter S being broken. Oh my god, guys, look, it says hell! He made another all-in-the-head game! Alright, guys, I hate to break it to you. Unfortunately, this is not Cry of Fear, where Lissad Man writes Lissad book. I promise. Please just keep watching. If anything, I'm happy that we just get another real-life reference here. This part of the map is incredibly dark, and there's no flashlight, with the only other source of light, apart from the petrol station, is a bus stop nearby. Exploring the outside of the station, there are payphones that don't work, and I think human skulls? Oh no. The blood trail from the car wreck leads inside the station shop. Going inside, you actually get a little bit of reprieve. It's well lit, and there's also some classic elevator music playing. They even have Doom 2 rendered hot dogs, donuts behind bulletproof glass, and an arcade cabinet of soda jerks. But there's one item here that's a dead giveaway that's going to be a huge standoff. Going behind the counter and interacting with the sludgy machine, your health will instantly be bumped to 200 HP. Ironically, the same number as the soul sphere that kicked off this entire adventure. But use it 3 times and it'll break with a fat out of order sticker covering all the options.
It's the maintenance man.
Sludgy bros. How will we ever recover?
It's the lemon lime.
Going into the back of the station, there's a storage closet. Nothing sticks out, just dozens of boxes. But behind a pile of them is the final item we've been searching for, a joystick, giving the message, it's my turn. After collecting the joystick, if you follow the blood trail from the car crash to the door opposite, it'll reveal a bathroom, one that's incredibly similar to the one from the original house. Opening the door once more, you're back in the old house, with the picture frame now completed in both worlds. But looking at the painting, which directed us to the hole in the fence in the mirror world, it's changed again to show the gas station we were just at. But now there's a campfire, asking us to find it. This only appears in the mirror world, so we have to go to the gas station again while staying in this world. In the mirror world, the car crash has been replaced entirely with a dropped flashlight, and going up to the Shell garage, it's been covered with police tape. And instead of only a few droplets of blood like the original world, there's blood sprayed everywhere, like it was the origin of an attack. Only the back entrance is accessible. Now, remember earlier when I mentioned the setup that this would probably be a standoff from the sludgy machine that would top up your health multiple times? Well, in the mirror world storage room where the joystick was found, there's a rocket launcher there instead. Trying to return to the house from here via the toilet is impossible due to the tape covering the door there as well. Even though this version of the station has changed drastically, there's still no campfire. The way this area works in both worlds is, apart from the Shell station, the entire road leading to it is one big circle that loops around. So instead of mindlessly humping walls like usual Doom, you'll actually have to use your eyes, which, by the way, is incredibly difficult here because not only is it pitch black, but the blue filter of the mirror world makes it even harder to see. Eventually finding an opening in the shrubbery, you can find a campfire that's mostly burnt out. Only embers are left. As soon as you go near the campfire, a door will open built into a tree with a white light emanating from it. But also, the campfire comes back to life, and if you've played Doom before, you'll hear a very familiar noise. That's the sound of an arch vial. Now, I just want to put it out there, I absolutely despise these things. The only thing I hate more than these are clears from the Serious Sam franchise.
Clears, come out to play. Clears, come out to play.
I'm sure you've seen them in Doom Eternal, but I think very few people have any idea how horrible these things were in the original Doom games. They were introduced in Doom 2 and were pretty rare, but deservedly so. The Doom 2 official manual says they're one of the worst of a bad lot. You can't think of enough rotten things to say about him. He's fast. I wrote fat in the script. Hard to kill, cast spells, and resurrects dead monsters. At least these suckers are rare. Most enemies in Doom 2 use projectiles to attack the player, with a few exceptions being hit scan like the zombies. But they deal such low damage that you can kind of justify it. Kind of. But archvials will raise their arms to set you on fire. The fire itself does no damage. But if it has line of sight of you when it claps its hands, the erupting flames will do insane damage. Something Filthy Frank would shamelessly steal years later with his Roast Lord bit.
Shut up!
Oh yeah, and if that's not bad enough, they can resurrect any enemy you've killed, and it only takes them about 1 to 2 seconds to do so. So faster than Left 4 Dead and anyone with a defib kit in Battlefield. They also have 700 HP, which is one of the highest in the entire game. Obviously, like a complete coward, I ran away from the mirror vial into the doorway that opened up. Escaping, we reach a beach. It seems calming and relaxed. Very different to the rest of the map we've explored. But upon further inspection, something doesn't feel right. The waves coming onto the beach have an obvious barrier so the player can't walk past. And the palm trees and brushes are cardboard cutouts. Going around the back, it's very obvious that this is a set, even with the director's chair. Interacting with the radio turns off the ocean sounds, and interacting with the clapper ends the journey. After this, the game never resumes. You'll have to load a previous save yourself or start over. Again, it doesn't feel like this is a definitive ending. It just feels so soulless. Pretty much the same as the for sale sign we got numerous times before. So instead, I loaded up a save just before escaping the mirror vial and tried to kill it.
Yep. Average arch vial health here. Average arch vial health.
What I didn't know at the time is the mirror vial is basically unkillable, having the second highest health pool in the entire game. 5 million HP, by the way. Only being beaten by the skin stealer in the backrooms. So the only other option I had was to run. Run back through the forest, back into the mirror house. But he'll follow you even here as well, trying to set you on fire, much like how they usually do in Doom 2. The only way to stop him is by hiding behind a wall or shooting him enough to stun lock him. Kind of like that one streamer when someone has a slightly differing opinion than him. Running through the house and jumping through the mirror back into the real world, you can see the mirror vial's really been at work, reviving every enemy you've killed and then some, with pretty much every enemy from base Doom 2 out for your blood. You've got Revenants, Mancubus, sorry, I meant to say Mancubi because that's plural and that's what they scream at you when they see you. Hell Knights, Barons of Hell, Arachnotrons, caretaker psycho demons, and even regular archviles, but thankfully these ones are actually killable. You're meant to escape through the hole in the picket fence, but instead, if you go upstairs into the attic, you can see the mirror vial. He's unable to attack you, but will just watch you instead, hoping that what he's brought into your world is enough to kill you. Escaping through the picket fence and running back to the gas station in the real world, you can finally experience what someone working in retail feels like, with you being bombarded by every single enemy Doom 2 has to offer, with even a spider mastermind on the roof. A boss that is so broken because at the time, in the 90s, someone at id thought it'd be a good idea to make a boss with 3000 HP entirely hit scan. The shell garage is basically where you'll have to hold out against hundreds of enemies.
There's been more and more of them since last night. Look on the bright side. We should be safe in here.
You'll never be able to kill all of them, but if you can kill enough, you can give yourself space to make a getaway and to try and find the campfire that was originally in the mirror world. Thankfully, in this scenario, you can rely on enemy infighting to a fair extent. The process of when an enemy tries to attack you, but attacks another enemy, completely on accident. Then, the attacked enemy gets pissed, and instead of trying to kill you, goes for whatever enemy attacked it. And when it attacks, that enemy, the original enemy, will try to kill whatever's attacking it. It's always a beautiful thing to watch, and basically simulates the nicest British interaction possible.
Don't touch me! Don't touch me!
The best strat here is to open the doors and slowly let enemies pile in. If you missed the secret BFG, the strongest weapon you probably have right now is the rocket launcher. But the problem is, myhouse.wad enables free look, so you can look anywhere. Doom 1 and 2 did not have this. You could only look left and right, not up and down. To compensate for this, in base Doom, when you shot towards an enemy that was above or below you, the weapon would have corrected to hit the enemy you're facing towards. You probably didn't notice this with normal guns, but with the rocket launcher, you can deal splash damage to the player. So in a lot of cases, the rocket will try to course correct to hit an enemy you can't actually see yet, which ends up hitting a brick wall, dealing 0 damage to the enemy, but killing you in pretty much one shot. Killing enough enemies to push out the back entrance of the shell garage, you can finally see how many enemies have been sent to kill you. The only light, apart from the shell garage and the bus stop, is now the hundreds of fireballs being thrown your way. I was just about to make it back to the camp, but then my favorite enemy in the entire franchise, the Archvile, gave up trying to attack me and instead body blocked me so I couldn't get to the exit.
Oh, there we go. No! No! Fucking Archvile!
After passing through the tree in the original world, instead of an obvious set, you're rewarded with a view of the ocean with a sunset in the distance. The game then notifies you that you found a secret. This is the only marked secret in the entire map. You can even find the dog from the Brutalist complex sleeping on the sand if you didn't kill either version.
No. It's not a PNG, it's a GIF. You can see his little chest going in and out. He's alive.
There's no back passage like on the fake beach. This is the true ending. And looking on the sand, you can find a love heart with the initials S and A. This feels like a conclusive ending, but there's obviously so much more to unpack here. Who or what made this map? Why are there so many real-life ties to Veg's nightmares? On January the 4th this year, he explains how he feels the project is beyond his control.
Today was supposed to be my first day back at work after the holiday break, but I decided to take one more day off work on myhouse.wad. I've been spending hours every day mapping out and organizing the project, but I'm starting to feel like it's taking on a life of its own. Despite being unable to remember making many of the changes, I keep finding new things appearing in the project. I'm starting to feel a little paranoid, like someone or something is watching me and is controlling the direction of the project. It's a strange feeling, and I'm not sure how to explain it, but I just feel like I'm not in control of the project anymore. It's a little unnerving, but I'm determined to finish the project.
Now, the thing is, I've lied to you. We never actually played myhouse.wad. The entire time we've been playing myhouse.pk3, which was a secondary file uploaded onto the Google Drive. The actual myhouse.wad that's so infamous is actually tucked away in a zip file right next to myhouse.pk3. So what happens if we boot up that version of the game instead? The first thing that's instantly clear is your height is reduced. That of a child or someone that's 5'11". The house itself has no hidden secrets, no rabbit holes to go down, but the player's height is super important because, keep in mind, the original MyHouse.wad was made by Veg's now deceased friend Tom as a child, who probably implemented his own height into the game, how he saw the house. So now we know that the PK3 version has been tampered with, confirmed by Veg's final journal entry on March the 9th.
I don't know if it's the memories of my friend that keep flooding back while working on this map, but I need to take a break. This project, which began as a simple cleanup and a release as a memorial, has consumed all my free time. Hours pass and I'm not aware of the time or familiar with the work added to the map. I'm gonna stop mapping for a while and come back later when I'm in a better place.
Most Doomwads come with a text file explaining what settings are enabled and disabled for the maps. My house's author in the details is Steve Nelson, so we can assume that Veg's real name is Steve, with his Gmail account being the birthday 1987. The text file also has a warning at the bottom to not copy or redistribute the material in any medium or format. And Steve has tried to delete the map, but it's continued to change and evolve without any input from him. He asks not to be credited or contacted and not to use the material for commercial purposes. He tried to keep it away from the internet, but it still found its way online. It's still changing. It wants you to feel sad, alone, desperate. Don't let it win. Don't play it. So we now know two things. So there's a pretty high chance that my PC is now cursed. This is an ARG that I feel is left purposely ambiguous. Thankfully, MatPat hasn't made a game theory on this yet, so I'm going to take his spot and come up with some game theories of my own. These theories don't cancel each other out, and some of them can actually coexist, but I'm going to go through them individually. Theory 1. MyHouse.pk3 is a living demonic entity. Complexity level, low. Now, this one is pretty much all but confirmed. The nightmares Steve has creating the game, the way the nightmares trickle into the game itself, using nightmares as building blocks to create the PK3 file. The daycare nightmare, the flooded nightmare, the fake beach. All of these are things that he dreamt of, sacrificing his sleep and real-life responsibilities because the map had just entirely consumed him. It's all he could work on. It's all he could think about.
I don't know if it's the memories of my friend that keep flooding back while working on this map, but I need to take a break. This project, which began as a simple cleanup and a release as a memorial, has consumed all my free time. Hours pass and I'm not aware of the time or familiar with the work added to the map. I'm gonna stop mapping for a while and come back later when I'm in a better place.
As mentioned above in the text file, Steve in the end feared about the PK3 version escaping from just his hard drive onto the entire internet. So you could interpret that this was his last attempt to try and protect us from even downloading it. Or in a more sinister way, complete delusion of him wanting the game all to himself. Something he mentioned in previous journal entries. He didn't want the support of the Doom community with the map. He wanted to work on it and have it all to himself. Obviously, there's no one else to corroborate this theory apart from Steve himself, who at this point is incredibly sleep-deprived and delirious. He might have even added all of this himself in his manic state. The items of his childhood, the unkillable archvile boss, almost cliche to face off against the final boss. Overall, I'll give this one 7 MatPats out of 10. It's pretty solid. Theory 2. Steve and Thomas were a married gay couple. Complexity level, medium. So the idea behind this one is Steve and Thomas, the childhood friend who died, were married, being childhood friends who reconnected later in life romantically. Now, this sounds like a fat stretch, but there are little details dropped all over the PK3 that hint towards this. At the campsite, you can find a carving in the tree with the initials S and A. On the fake beach ending, you can find just an S, but on the true beach, you can find the complete initials again. S obviously stands for Steve, the creator of the WOD. But what does A stand for? Going into the photo album included in the WOD, you can see an obituary of Steve's childhood friend, Thomas Allard. Throughout the game, we've picked up numerous items hinting at a relationship. The wedding ring, the baby bottle, these all hint at some kind of marriage and beyond. In Steve's journal, he even mentioned about losing the love of his life and just wanting to move on, implying it was a very recent bereavement. Now, even though this is a pretty popular theory for people to run around with, I think there's actually a lot more holes here than people want to admit. For example, why would Steve use his first name, but Thomas using his last name? And throughout the entire journal, Steve only refers to Thomas as his friend, and never as his partner, even towards the end. This theory gets 5 map pats out of 10. Theory 3. Stephen and Tom are the same person. Complexity? Medium. There are a lot of elements of duality displayed through the game that show Thomas might actually be some form of mental projection. Having different sides of the same person taking over to protect Steve, or to even finish things that he couldn't. This theory plugs up a lot of holes left over by the end of the game, but like any Sea of Thieves game, you usually end up having even more holes in the process. The map itself is called My House. We know that Steve found an old floppy disk with the map among Thomas's childhood belongings. But do we know that it was Thomas's to begin with? They were both avid map makers as kids, and I'm sure, as many of you know, how easy it is to stay at a friend's house and then leave something, only for it to basically fall into the backrooms and never be seen again. Steve also mentions in his journal that he would live through Thomas's dreams via the map. But most importantly, there's one more secret myhouse.pk3 has that I haven't even mentioned yet when you play the game. Pathways you take throughout the game can lock you out of certain areas, like how if you go into the burned house, you can't access the good ending. But by playing through the game multiple times via the Underhalls map, you can still check every single encounter, and after leaving the burned house, when the for sale sign appears, you can still open the secret wall in the fence. Instead of being taken to the woodland road with the car crash and the gas station, you see a single tombstone with a QR code on it. This code, as of recording, is unusable. I don't think Steve expected so many people to play this ARG, but by going onto the archive of the website, we can see another obituary, but instead of it being for Thomas, it also includes Steve, with them both being the exact same age and dying on the same day. On top of that, their surviving family members have very similar names. Thomas has Dale, Judy, Suzanne, Joel, and David, while Steve has Douglas, Julie, and Samantha. This winking man that Steve dreams about could be Thomas, a more happy version of Steve, with the game even acknowledging that and twisting it into something nefarious. But again, there are some points against this. My House could have just been the name Thomas gave the .wad file. The obituary does exist. We can see it here, so there's a possibility that they died together. Also, the journal does mention Thomas a lot, but if that's the case, why does the journal even exist if Steve was dead before he wrote it? Jesus Christ, I feel like I'm watching Mr. Nobody.
Of all those lives, which one is the right one?
Each of these lives is the right one. Every path is the right path.
Overall, this one gets like a 5.5 map pats out of 10. Very strong theory, but it falls apart once you pick it apart. Theory 4. Thomas is a trans man. Complexity. This one's a fat stretch, I'm not even gonna lie. So this is a theory I've seen being parroted around everywhere, and honestly, it's probably one of the weakest theories out there, but I'll still explain it. This comes from the airport. When you enter the female bathroom, you can find a bottle of empty pills. And once you fight your demons, you come out of it with a full bottle you can pick up with the notification, feeling fine.
Life is good.
And now the bathroom sign has changed from female to male. This theory makes sense in a vacuum, but it really doesn't line up once you compare it to other things you find in the game. Now, I will admit, the way I explained it, the bathroom set piece, it does seem to be an allegory for being transgender and the process of gender-affirming care. This could also clear up the A being referred to with Thomas's dead name. Now, the evidence against this, apart from everything, Lamau, why would you put your partner's dead name in a tribute to their life? Also, no A name is given at any point. I can see why people would believe this theory, but apart from the bathroom, it has nothing else to work with, so I'm giving this one like a 2 out of 10. Now, I do have another theory about the airport bathroom I actually don't see a lot of people talking about. Theory 5. The airport bathroom event is a miscarriage of A and Steve's baby. When you go into the female toilet, it becomes coated in blood, with demons spinning around in circles, displaying the traumatic incident of A's baby being stillborn and causing bleeding to the mother. I already mentioned the empty medication bottle when you enter the bathroom. This could symbolize not having enough medication to protect someone from a painful memory or trauma. Insert dream normal pills joke here. When the demons do spawn, unless you know they're coming on repeat playthroughs or watching this video, it's pretty much impossible to not take at least some form of damage fighting them off. This could be the bleeding and pain caused by the miscarriage striking, and only by fighting off the demons, she could get to the medicine to make the pain go away, because when you turn back, the blood is gone. Keep in mind, when this first happened, I died because I was massively overwhelmed and woke up in the hospital, your one and only extra life during the whole game. That person you can barely make out behind the curtain could be Steve's partner, flatlining. That, or it could be a representation of Steve's own heart dying in the moments after the miscarriage. And by running to get a defib, you could be trying to save A, or to get your own heart going again after such a traumatic event to keep pushing forward. Steve even had a dream of a baby crying in the attic, finding a stillborn baby inside. Not to mention the baby bottle you can find in the game as well. The only real evidence against this is it still doesn't explain why the genders of the bathroom switch. But overall, I give this one an 8 out of 10. It's pretty conclusive, even though it doesn't answer everything. Theory 6. Now, this one's really interesting. The whole PK3 is a manifestation of a trauma loop. Not the final level in the last video I made. I mean an actual endless loop of trauma. There's only 2 real endings to my house. You either get to the final beach and enjoy the view, or you push yourself to find everything, reaching the headstone to find out that you, or at least the owner, is dead. The house itself is a manifestation of trauma and reliving the past to eternally torment yourself. 2 times in the journal, a winking version of Steve is mentioned as being a happier version of him, first in the mirror dream and then in the true beach ending.
Somewhere, in another dream, the version of myself that winked back is sitting on the real beach, happy and content, knowing life is finite. There is no afterlife, and happiness is found in the small things around us that we can control. Happiness has to be fought for.
We fought past hundreds of monsters to reach the real ending. That was the happiness that we fought for. This could be what's left of Steve's hope reaching out to him and showing him that the past is unchangeable as it is inevitable, and why he must live in the present to be happy, not constantly reminding himself of the past. MyHouse.wad is harmless, but MyHouse.pk3 is trauma. It's partly nightmares, partly memories all merged together. I don't think Doom 2 is the game's setting by chance. The entire setup to Doom is hell coming to Earth. The PK3 grows more as Steve feeds into it. Being so sleep deprived, he shuts himself off from the outside world and doesn't want anyone else to tamper with his trauma, because secretly, he's ashamed. Cry of Fear reference incoming. But as humans, we can be drawn to trauma, reliving it in our heads despite knowing it won't do us any good. It's a form of self-harm, but Steve is addicted to it. The Dark Wad was what Thomas made as a child, untampered and harmless, a clean memory. The PK3 is what Steve transformed it into after dumping all of his trauma onto it. He stopped living in the now, racked by guilt over his friend's death to the point he's stun-locked himself. He can't move forward, forcing himself to relive memories like the house fire, the events that Thomas lived. Getting the true ending is taking the winking Steve's advice, fighting for your happiness and living in the now. Steve takes a long look in the mirror and tries to look forward. The grave ending is forcing Steve to relive the worst moment, collecting every token of pain, not letting go, and it winds up being his own death, listed in the obituary, melded with his childhood friend Tom. The trauma itself gets a life of its own and uses Steve as a vessel of pain, wanting to give it to others because misery loves company. Now, the evidence against this, apart from being all in their head for what, the 7th video in a row now?
I know what you may be thinking. Is all of this in John's head? Is John actually in some mental hospital? Is this just a pyrocynical video?
It's pretty conclusive, and it doesn't tie the bow as much as the gay conclusion does, but still 8 map pats out of 10. Now, these are all great interpretations of the story, but recently I uncovered something that blew everything we knew out of the water. Obviously, my house is an ARG, which means it bleeds in and out of real life. But what I found was huge, and I don't think anyone has actually talked about this yet. Even Powerpack, with his really good video that got 7 million views. God damn it.
God damn it!
A TikTok creator. Yep, I'm bringing TikTok into this. Stay with me.
Entering Glizzy Overdrive.
A TikTok creator by the name of Banana Pants posted this video on their account. Now, her name is Amy. The more she shared, the clearer the story became.
I'm not gonna do it, girl. I was just thinking about it. I'm not gonna do it.
The same painting, the Xbox, he had recreated in his home with his family 1-to-1. They even made the item collection frame and hung it in the same place. One thing I could never understand was the messages you got after picking up the artifacts to get the true ending. They don't really tie into any theories, but now I've realized all the items and references, they all relate back to his marriage. Even Pumpkin Rick that was made by Amy, his wife at the time. And yes, it was a Pickle Rick reference.
I turned myself into a pickle, Morty! I'm Pickle Rick! You shut the hell up!
Amy confirmed that the mod's story was intertwined with lots of things. House of Leaves is the most notable literary reference found. A book that's renowned for being incredibly hard to read for how it's been printed, with text printed sideways, obscured by boxes, or even overlapping into each other. The exact same way that Steve's final entries did. The book is a documentary novel by Mark Z. Danielowski, which is about an endless, constantly changing labyrinth inside a family home. You can even find the same maze in-game. By interacting with the closet in the upstairs bedroom, it'll have nothing of interest, but every time you open it, it'll have a 9.09% chance of opening to a dark hallway into a huge labyrinth. There's even a spiral staircase that if you drop down, you'll simply fall forever. The exact same spiral staircase featured on the front of the book. The final sale sign being Navidson, the family who discovers the maze. Even the journal highlights house in blue, just like in the book. This brings us to the most important revelation. Ironically, the most important story element was the one that most people looked over.
Happy Valentine's Day to the only person I ever loved. For a short time, you brought a little happiness to this painful existence called life. I hope we can be together again one day. In the meantime, I'll keep looking for the other someone who can be the ray of light of my life that you turned out to be.
The story was about a marriage, a life together coming to an end. All these items were reminders of the marriage, the good time spent with his family. She even directly says that my house just captured his life falling apart. He had written his own life into the story and merged the fiction with his own reality. Now, I don't want to intrude on their personal lives any further. I mean, I already have, to be fair, but on a final note, she did mention that it was a mutual ending and they are on good terms. I wouldn't have included such a personal part in the video if that wasn't the case. So, if anything, I wish both of them the best in their future. I'm just happy that it ended amicably and not a Brendan Fraser situation where he has to pay $900,000 a year in alimony fees. It's funny because so many of us have looked at the game to find a deeper meaning, and the entire time it was just staring us in the face. A house is only a home with people in it. It's the people and experiences we made where we live that makes the memories, be that good ones or bad ones. A lot of us have many places we call home throughout our lives, and we tie those memories to locations, thinking that they stick out, but they really don't. Each place is a blank canvas that we work from, and in the case of the creator of my house, he blended his reality with fiction and crafted something so captivating that we did the same thing. We came up with theories and stories from the bumps and scratches left from a history of lives lived, and came to conclusions because we imprint our own stories to make them feel closer to us. And that's what good stories do. They slap us in the driver's seat and let us fill the gaps. That's not even talking about the technical wizardry put into this. The final details from life and just how we seamlessly use the tools to make both a gameplay and narrative standpoint. Did you even notice that when going downstairs, the upstairs is changed magically in the first place, like when you're not looking? All I'm saying is, you don't get the creator of the original game you're modding to be blown away with what you just did.
Well, I do have... Damn. That's cool.
Or, like any game with a lawn, having people completing the boomer fantasy but fighting their own inner turmoil by speeding around the map with a lawnmower mod. And that's the one thing that captures everybody's minds when it comes to myhouse.wad. The gameplay drives the story, and the story drives the gameplay, the trickery and the creativity. Watching other people play this game and seeing that aha moment from them when they realize something is going wrong, the mod is fantastic. Seeing the doors disappear, the impossible room, and the soul sphere outside that disappears. All stories, memories, bad things and good, all things have an end. The start is built into the beginning. For everybody who ends up playing it, it'll always be my house.
Oh man, not my house!
Today I woke up to the news that an old childhood friend of mine had suddenly passed away. We were so close when we were younger, and I feel like a part of my life is now missing. I feel so helpless. Like I can't do anything to bring him back. His parents gave me some old personal items that belonged to my friend. I was surprised to find a stack of old discs containing some Doom file backups. Then I stumbled across a map that I had never seen before. It was a map of my friend's house. The best way to honor our friendship is to clean up his work and release it to the public. I can finish my friend's map and maybe add some new features to spruce it up as well. 4:30 a.m. and I'm still up working on this map for Doom. I'm not sure why, but I'm having trouble sleeping lately. I continue having these vivid, cryptic dreams. I didn't make this area of the map. I'm sure of it. I just feel like I'm not in control of the project anymore. I'm starting to feel like someone or something is watching me. But I'm determined to finish this project. More important, the map needs me. Without my guiding hand, the map doesn't know what to build. But I can help it, guide it. It knows what I'm feeling. It knows how Thomas felt. It needs me as much as I need it. After a year, 2, 5, 10, 20 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, I've sat in this room for 1,000,000 years now, entertaining the same thoughts, pondering the same questions, and ruminating on every mistake in my life. There is no afterlife. And happiness is found in the small things around us that we can control. Happiness has to be fought for.
Oh no, XCQ has breached containment, please catch him. Wait, watch out for that twig.